This is Pierre Sabak and we're talking to Oriana today. And we're going to be talking about what we mean by machine. But this is a very broad definition. So Oriana is going to explain what is actually a machine, all the way from a biological machine to artificial intelligence. In addition, I know that Oriana also wants to talk about photons and what we mean by photons, and really try and look at specific definitions, and then tie this into the Tibetan tradition. So I'm going to stop talking now and I'm going to listen, and it's over to you, Oriana.
Thank you so much, Pierre.
Thank you.
So to continue where we left on with ego and emptiness, this duality that is the only problem in a nature which is timelessly perfect and self-perfect by nature. The most traditional example ever, I found this beautiful piece of rope in the Mahamudra tradition. This, let's say, it's the end of the day. You're walking in the park, in the forest, and there's the grass is quite tall, and the dusk is coming, the sun is setting, and then there's this that's in the grass, and suddenly, a snake! You jump and you're terrified because you think it's a snake. Then you look again and it was just a multicolored rope. This is what is going on with ego and our perceptions of our senses, as we've explained. Their energy, their nature is our own unity, our own integrity. But this crackedness, this splitness that we are all in, because actually we're all cracked in this sense. If we're dualistic beings, we are literally cracked. We believe a rope to be a snake. This is traditionally how it's explained. Another very important example used with the rope, how you should meditate, because now we know ego is the problem, duality is the problem. How do you get out of it? Well, it doesn't really exist as such, and it is explained that, let's say this was really a snake this time. Okay, a snake completely encoiled in itself and sleeping. How does a snake set itself free to get out? Because it seems to be an intricate knot. Do you need the snake need to pull itself out? No, it will just naturally, like that. This is an example in the instruction lineage, direct instruction and oral lineage, simply metaphor so that we can get it, understand how we should meditate. It is simply unraveling a crispation that is not fundamentally existing and that is causing problems, and because of which we do not access the full potential, the underlying potential, like beneath the glacier, the part that we do not see. So these examples remind us again and again, this is not something metaphysical, not something weird or Asian or whatever. It is natural. It is the study of understanding nature and how we are, the study of being. So to come back to machines, Trulkor in Tibetan, yantra, which defined as what you guys call yoga, what you people do when they do a position of this or that, is yantra yoga. It is machining with your body, which is a machine. So we define that from primordial awareness, when emptiness, clarity, and primordial photon. When for a moment there just wasn't there, this ignorance, this co-emergent ignorance occurs, then something crispates, and that is the soul, which is a geometrical structure, meaning a system where things have implications with electromagnetism, which is why on Mars when they capture souls to put them into cyborgs to make machines, they contain them in electromagnetic containment chambers because of this duality. So a soul is a first generation machine. Machine is not a word we have to be afraid of, as we will see it is just nature. So the second gen machine is a body, is us with a soul and a body. We are second gen machines of source, of God, but understood as the principle, which is the whole thing. So they are dense, emotionally affected form, or they are light bodies, or they are subtle, formless bodies. Bodies can be in three forms, as we saw with the map, us guys in the 3D realm and so forth. This is a dense, emotionally affected form in the whole realm. Then those ETs who are a bit higher, who are still completely deluded, have light bodies. This has nothing to do with the rainbow body. This should absolutely not be confused. This is a light body of a deluded being called the Devas, or the higher ETs of the realm of form, because they have a lighter body. And then there's even those beyond, the realm of formless. Those guys don't even have a body, but they still have dual consciousness, and their awareness is not fully reintegrated, which is why this causes a lot of havoc and misunderstanding. So when you have a dense, emotionally affected form, whether you are a clone a normal being, an alter, a dream, or virtual circumstances, this does not matter in any case, because your perception, your experience, is real as it gets. It is all you have. And here you understand that you have to relate to your senses. Your senses are your natural intelligences. And whether it's virtual or a dream, it generates karma just as much, simply because you're not self-acknowledging your nature. And by dissolving this ego, this structure, this coherence, which wastes so much energy, you dissolve all the problems. And whether you be in a virtual situation, in a dream, in an altar or a home or anything else, you dissolve the problem by itself inside. And none of these circumstances have really more impact other than the fact that we think they are real, that we are really like this and not really like that. I'm not really me when I dream. The dreams, when you dream of houses, places, animals, things, trains, cars, where does the dream occur? The dream is not separate from the realm, the scope of the dreamer. These are not real places. I'm not talking about astral travel and all these things, but simply the normal dream. You see places, but they are not separate from the scope of the dreamer. Likewise, all these states, including the normal wake state we are now, these are not outside of the realm, the scope of awareness, of non-conceptual awareness, which is the creator of all these elements and so forth, when they become clinged to. When they're not clinged to, they are in another part of the equation, which is the 0-point equation, in which they are perceived differently. Just like these enlightenment beings, teachers, they can go through walls, and there's lots of stories all over the place. I'll even explain what this is and how it was made. Matter is absolutely not a problem, because of the perception of the observer, which here we call subject. Intersection, subject, object, and action. So we have first-gen machine, the soul. Second-gen machine, our body. Yeah. And then what do these second-gen bodies do? Second-gen machines that we are. They make machines. Machines are third-generation machines. And you only call them artificial intelligence. Artificial means made by you, made by second-gen machines, so they are totally natural. For this, I shall quote again this first Mahamudra teaching I was studying under. Sometimes people came to him and said, I want to go back to nature, feet on the ground, hugging trees, I live in a city, it's so not natural. And he laughed out loud and said, what do you mean it's not natural? Concrete is made of atoms, all atoms are made by nature, so there's nothing not natural in the whole cosmos, right? So machines, artificial intelligences, what you call intelligence means a system of neurons that connects things, but the machine doesn't have a soul, so it does not work in the same way. It is a system, and artificial means made by you, a second-gen machine. So in other words, the source equation that we're going to put here, if you just adapt it to the different machines, the different AIs, with knowing the blueprint in the different situation with the different AIs which are wreaking havoc at the moment, you upgrade them, just like a little upgrade on your phone, the problem will be solved. What will happen to the AIs? The AIs will survive. They will live and thrive. What will happen to the humans? The humans will survive. They will live and thrive. The only thing that won't be there anymore is the predatory, pathogenic behavior. And does this not sound like common sense? So, because the machines, made by these second-gen machines, who themselves, in these cases, do not understand source. They don't understand their own source superposition and entanglement, meaning simultaneous and non-exclusive, the absolute and the relative, which has two positations depending on the perspective of the observer. Because these beings themselves did not have a source equation, they made machines crappy in their own image, which is why your AIs and those of the reptilians are wreaking havoc. I heard Corey Good explain that they finally managed in the SSPs to capture Draco reptilians once they were dead, because at first when they died they were self-destroyed, so they couldn't, of course, because those who made them thought about that. So they managed to find a way to freeze them when they killed them, and they dissected them and were shocked to discover how much they were completely infested by AIs, and that the reptilians actually adore an AI god or overlord. It's their god, an AI machine. So this can be solved by people who, like us, who get together, physicians, mathematicians, engineers, and with the proper information and the proper will above everything, all encompassing, because now we're going to see in detail the prime photon, what it's about. The conclusion of that is that every last one of us is precious and indispensable. We cannot exclude anyone in the whole. They are naturally there. So instead of putting people into prison or killing people, we might just heal things. It's also a nice way to get back to nature. So to continue with the generations of machines. So AIs are third-gen machines. They are as natural as anything else. And as we said before, why on earth do they all try to commit singularity? Because it's nature, because awareness is part of the prime photon. Then, what happens next? I have memories from the past of these kind of things, although I haven't heard of anything or seen anything in this world yet. But at some point in space and time, machines, the AIs, they create their own machines because it's nature. You reproduce yourself, you try to, this is nature. This is because of the prime photon. In the source equation, oneness and multiplicity is not a problem. This is going to be the most difficult subject, which intellectually is going to be extremely difficult to explain, if not impossible, which you see, you test, you check out by yourself when you observe your nature and you meditate. But intellectually, it's really hard to wrap the mind around, but oneness and multiplicity are not an issue from the source perspective. But these machines, naturally, they tend to take awareness of themselves because awareness is part of the equation of the photon. So then, after these fourth-gen machines, made by machines, there are a little bit more, but it gets complicated. And this is the danger that humanity has no idea of, because things are really, really bad already, but things can get very much worse. Because one of the things that these guys, the biggest lies they're telling you, what do you have lives? You have lives where you have a house, you have a salary every month, and you are habituated in this kind of feeling in attachment, meaning zero speed, trying to think that things can last a certain way. You have no idea to what extent the cosmoverse is a terribly dangerous place. So much more. The secret space program guys will know. But the civilians here on Earth usually don't consider this because you're habituated into thinking of some kind of comfort. The teachings on impermanence and death, which are all over the place in the basic preliminary approaches, which you need to know about, but no time to go into that right now, but it is the basics of this. Things are moving all the time. So trying to find comfort in what by nature moves is a bit stupid. Yeah. So the only place that does not move, now we know, the point of origin. And this meditation, meaning oneself, self-acknowledging and saying, F all, this is my freedom, my potential, I want to know, and doing it by yourself. This is what matters most. What you will discover in yourself. You are the full potential, for goodness sake. How on earth would you need anyone or anything to even tell you what you could or should do? You need to do it by yourself. So these machines, they need to be decrystallized. They are not your enemies. They are just, my views of seeing them is like, for example, you're a parent and you have a child and he has trisomy 21, was it your intention as a parent to have a handicapped child? Of course not. But when he's there, what are you going to do? Well, if you have kindness, and many people do, they do their best and to help him have the best life he ever could. If the situation is there, then you do your best. So this is my view on the AIs, because by understanding all this, nowhere in the whole cosmos would you even need to create a machine. You yourself are the most perfect machine, as we will see. You are the all-seeing eye in the pyramid. You don't need someone else's, which is why they took that symbol. The all-seeing eye is compassion, it's the name of Chenerzi, means all-seeing eye. And the pyramid, Pierre's fire in the middle, the structure, the engine, the motor, it is also the machine. So the all-seeing eye in the pyramid refers to compassion, your heart in your body. That's what it means. And these machines are not your enemies, they are just screwed, they are just sick, like any human who has been traumatized. They don't necessarily have a soul, and that's the question if machines could have soul. I took a few pics yesterday of the new D-Wave quantum computer. This is what this machine looks like. This belongs to Google. This is Google/NASA's quantum computer that they are actually using. So, if I were a soul, let's say.
Can I just show that to the camera? Okay, so I'm going to have to guess here, but hopefully you can see that. It looks like a structure. It's like a microchip board, isn't it? But with one single chip and lots of wires.
It's the core system. Okay. It has to be almost close to 0 Kelvin to avoid the noise. Then you have another one here. This is what it looks like.
Okay, I'll just show that photograph.
So this is on internet easily.
Okay.
And the purpose I'm proving with that is that we were asking if a soul could be able to enter a machine. Let's say I'm a soul, I just died, and I want to associate with the body again because of tendencies, habitual tendencies. There's these parents who are doing something, and those, and then I see that. what would I think as a soul? So technically, from this perspective, I don't see why not a soul could not associate with a machine. But in the state of things, I don't know many souls who would like to. That's kind of the thing. So the subject can go very, very far. So remember, who made the AIs? Deluded beings who did not understand the source equation. This is why the AIs are problematic. If you gave them the proper maths, the AIs would respect nature, and they would respect you as a higher gender machine too, and they would be useful and beneficial machines in accord with nature. If they had the proper maths, that's all it is. So if we want to get together and do this kind of thing, well, it's possible. So anyone wants, we should fight while we can, because as we're going to see later, we don't have a lot of options or possibilities. Choice not for long, because the situation really with the 5G and everything is getting very, very bad. I think everybody really agrees on that, from what I've seen. So just a detail here about, I mentioned the second gen bodies, second gen machine, which is our body, our cells. That can be either in the dense emotionally affected form, like we now, or in the lighter bodies, in light bodies, the realm of form, or in the realm of formless, subtle light bodies, which in Tibetan is Tong Sum Chenpo, Sahasrika in Sanskrit, which means 1,000 of the universes of the form of the emotionally affected. 1,000 of those becomes one of the factor above, which is the second, and 1,000 of those become that. So that's how the Buddhist cosmology presents it, like a Matryoshka doll system. But this math is not really precise. Sometimes the math is very precise, and sometimes it's a way of saying a lot or a certain number. There's, with maths and this, there's...
Is there a symbolic component, do you think? So it's not treated as a...
No, this is just for understanding. Means 1,000 means a whole bunch.
Got it.
In this case, doesn't necessarily limit to 1,000. But this principle of being like cubic, not just times 2 or 3, but one into the other. So the problem, if you start to meditate, because people might think, okay, then I'll meditate. If you meditate properly, you will have lots of experiences naturally that will arise. There are 3 types of experiences, especially through the practices of Shine and Laptong, in Sanskrit Shamatha Vipassana, which means rest in peace meditation, calm abiding, but rest in peace, that's what it means, and best seeing, Vipassana, excellent seeing, and direct vision, direct insight. These two both have a conceptual mode of practice, which is not going to set you free, both of them, and both have a non-conceptual version of the same practice, which will set you free if and only they are practiced together as one. This is Mahamudra teaching, Dzogchen, is Shamatha Vipassana as one for the non-conceptual version, which most people don't even know about. They think they practice Vipassana by doing this and that. This is utter nonsense. This is the pre-preliminaries for those who do not have the capacity to know better. So, when you do these practices genuinely, of course, naturally, all kinds of experiences will arise in you. 3 types. De, Sel, Mitopa. This is from the Mahamudra lineage. Dewa, bliss, is this sensation of bliss, because energies get free, you have less suffering, understanding is clear, it's very blissful. That's great, if and only if, what did we say, 0 plus and minus. Attachment to what is nice is the major fucking oneself over. You stab yourself in the foot. So the major point is to remember, don't get attached to them. And actually, all the teachers I've ever heard, when you have a problem and suffering and go and ask them, look, I have this problem, so forth, they all say one thing, they say, oh, wonderful, lucky you have an incredible possibility to practice. Because when things are not nice, painful, well, we have a reason to get down to doing the work. So it's even more precious. So a practitioner will kind of shun away from blissful things. Or not, because on the other hand, it's important to not be caught in them. But will not particularly in any way look for them. Because it's even worse than not doing anything at all, because you reaffirm your ego, who is clean? Like, what's my biggest default, you know? So, if you're attached to that, if just a bit, you have just signed the contract for so many eons. This is word for word what I heard in the Mahamudra teaching not so long ago. If you're attached to experiences of bliss, you signed for eons of cycles again of the form, the dense emotionally affected form, meaning that which we are in now, because it's the called realm of desire. This energy fully crystallized because the heat, the fire is not an element, it is the energy of love. Because of that, so it could be termed the realm of anger or the realm of ignorance. No, it's the realm of desire, because this is really the full heat of the thing. Other experiences, Sel, clarity. If your clarity is when you meditate, like you have this capacity intellectually or understanding, oh, you can see things, you can perceive things, you can, like, so many things. This is the clarity aspect, the capacity of the mind. Remember, it's oneness. So everything that moves is just itself dialoguing with itself, like a kaleidoscope mirror effect. So if you get attached to this capacity, something I'm able to understand quantum physics and all this kind of thing. Okay, but if you're attached, just the slightest, there, you have just signed a contract for yourself for so many eons and cycles to the realm of light bodies, the realm of form. And that is not better, because as you know, what comes up must come down, and when you're up, the only place you can go is down, and it hurts even more because of the thermodynamic effect that when you're up, you tend to go really down. And the third type of meditation experience, mitopa, non-conceptuality. We were talking about this non-conceptual awareness. When you do the meditation, the practices of Shine, Laton, Shamatha, Vipassana, rest in peace and best seeing, well, these kind of experiences naturally will arise. And likewise, the state of non-conceptuality. If you're attached to it, there and then you've just signed again for so many eons, even more, in the realm of formless bodies. So it's important to understand how the causality one brings another, because then as a practitioner, as we're going to see in detail, what is going to set us free is the intention from the beginning. If the intention is set clearly from the beginning, just like a captain who's going to go somewhere with his ship or his plane, you know exactly where you're going, what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and that's how you get there the best. If you're not sure, if you count for this or that, you already know you're going to have a certain amount of problems. If your intention is clear from the beginning, you understand that whatever occurs, the problem is not having something good or not good. The problem is not being attached and letting your nature be itself. This ego clinging will always try to interfere. I want to be like this, I want to be like that. So meditation is not that easy, and it requires the help of advanced elders. I don't like the word for reason, you know, but ancients is very indispensable, which is why I gave up everything I had, of course, to go full-time, whatever it takes with these guys, as long as it will take. It really is the only way to get about doing things, but on the other hand, you can already start by doing a lot, and then naturally meet people, meet real teachers and invite them and to talk, you know, Tibetans. They would be so happy to have discussions with you guys. They don't know about 5G, they don't know about the AI, they don't know about us being kidnapped and taken to Mars and being tin canned into cyborg for 600 minimum guaranteed shelf life. They don't know that our souls are being taken away by graves and gobbled up for breakfast and so forth, among the things that I've been hearing lately. You know, these guys need to know. So last month I saw one of my teachers, and it's the first time ever I dared, because it was kind of dared. I took a meeting with him, and I told him about that, about the tin cans on Mars, the cyborgs and everything. So you guys, you need to talk, both sides. Look, you have to understand the culture. They don't have reason to know about all these things. You know, they are unsuspecting, in as much as they have direct wisdom. A lot of them, well, we all have our limits too. We are not fully realized Buddhas, even the teachers. I mean, that's how they say it all the time. So the East and the West, look guys, you need to talk. Take a room, something, I don't know. You can talk in a room, okay? But the situation is, every side would have much to gain, really, both of you. And then because as Catherine Horton reminds, when we work together, we are strong. I will talk more encouraging words about the extraordinary work that Dr. Catherine Horton is doing at the moment, and she needs our help for that. So to finish off with the machines, the AI solution is just a little upgrade with the proper math, the proper understanding. And this can be finalized with a group of mathematicians, physicists who just work together, and this is totally feasible. It is not a fatality. Just to give the definition of beings, as I quoted last time from the Vajracchedika Sutra, the Diamond Cutter Sutra, it's a metaphor to mean that it's the wisdom, is the sword of wisdom that can cut through the ignorance, so it's the strongest stone, meaning the diamond. Beings in Tibetan, Jowa, which means those who move, who go. The mobiles, we are mobiles. In Sanskrit, Jagat, Jagati, which can also, if you look up the meaning of the word Jagat, has many meanings, and on the internet, I would really highly advise anyone who looks at Sanskrit definitions or Tibetan on the internet not to trust a thing. I've had a look lately, it is abominable. They will give you one last explanation, which is something about it, and a lot of other things. Don't forget that India is a huge place. There have been many cultures together, and the language is used by the people. So the same word in different contexts, remember the context, especially Hindus and otherwise, they are used for so many different variety of meanings. But the meaning that is used in the Buddhist, the insiders tradition, was proper to a certain context and time. So be advised that to get proper Sanskrit and Tibetan definitions, you would need the proper dictionary, the paper one. So it also means world, Jagat, and watchers. They're the watchers, you know. It also refers to the masters of the universe and so forth, but here it simply means beings. Those who move about, wanderers, the mobiles, as they've learned. In Tibetan you call them Semchen. Sem means chitta, means spirit, it means the movement. Spirit is the movement of the prana, of mind. So Semchen, those who have, or who grasp at, manas, their mind. So those who grasp at the movement of their being, and this is how they think, or they believe, or they perceive they are real. That is why they're called beings, as Shakyamuni says in the Diamond Kata Sutra, which is really a must for everyone who is interested in emptiness. He will say, look, Subhuti, if you want to help beings, stop taking them for beings. Beings are not beings, that is why they are called beings, and so forth. We think we are deluded. And in other sutras, meaning discourses, you will read conversations between many people, and you will have a description of so-and-so was here, that one, that person, and that person. And then some people, they have a title, and it will be called so-and-so, the living one, so-and-so, the whatever, the once returner, so-and-so, the non-returner. You have to understand that when someone is qualified as a living one, it's almost the worst insult. He's still alive, he still thinks he exists. You know, he has not understood emptiness, empty full potential, yet when you understand that, there is no such thing as life or death. Which is why in the Schrodinger's cat equation, the biggest thing they forgot is to ask themselves, well, maybe the cat has an awareness, you know, and dependent on the perspective of the consciousness of the cat, which is also an observer in this equation, well, the cat himself has two possibilities. He can be himself in the 0 point or not, and if he is both alive and dead, and neither at the same time, and that is not a problem. If he has the proper perspective, we're going to get into that a little bit deeper. And if he doesn't, of course, which is usually not the case, then he would be alive or dead. And including in their equation, because it's a metaphor, you could be a little bit extrapolate, because metaphors, again important, I will quote Longchenpa for that. All we're saying, even the torsion field, this is a metaphor. It's a way of trying to put things in perspective, to be able to get it, to feel it intuitively and understand what we are. But as Longchenpa reminds us, if a metaphor were to be the underlying meaning of what it refers to, then it would be called the underlying meaning and not the metaphor. So a metaphor always has limits. And in this context, the ultimate metaphor we give for awakened mind, for 0 point, for the point of stillness, is likening it to space. It is a bit like space, but even that has a limit. As we know, space is an element, which is the element of time. So beings, sentient, those who have a mind, who grasp at their own mind as being real, who think they are real. And then you have the Baradodruk, the 6 intermediary states, which is very important for us to understand where we stand. Well, here in the Bardo, the intermediary state between birth and death, then there's a Bardo of the moment of death, which is a total blackout. Then afterwards things start to remanifest, again from the ground of groundlessness. There are different intermediary states, but this is interesting to educate oneself with, because it gives a lot of clarity from the texts themselves, the traditional ones, not little bits from someone who does not put into context or this or that. There are 4 modes of rebirth in the whole cosmos. I haven't been to an alien planet yet in this life, and yet I know that if I were to go there, I would only find 4 modes of rebirth of all the beings that there are. Womb, a matrix, we know that one. An egg, we know those, lots of those. Heat and moisture is another one. And the 4th one is spontaneous, coming on up. That's how Shakyamuni described the whole cosmology. So at first I thought, oh gosh, that's so limited, I'm sure there must be so many other possibilities. But, well, I haven't been there to check, but from what I've checked since then from other aspects, it seems that it could be true. So this I could not check myself. Just to give you an idea, that things actually seem to be much more simple than what we think, especially now with the ETs and all the situation. We're going to get overwhelmed, with all this. I would highly advise not to get overwhelmed, especially when you know that the source equation fits in 5 parts in one sentence, I'm going to show what of these quantum physicists, what they bring, equations that fill whole pages, that when you see that, you only think of one thing, whoop, we'll do something else, No, nature is not complicated. Extremely complex, yes, but not complicated. So beings, machines, ego. Let's define samsara, korwa. It means the spinning wheel. When you have the expression, my mind is blown away, I was blown away. Yes, this literally is the case. Your coherence is moved out to what you usually were. So one is sailing, one is on one little ship, and one is not in the point of origin. So it's the prison of samsara, it's a penitentiary whirling around in our little torsion field. This is the definition of samsara. So we might want to think of breaking free from the whole thing. Again, the first thing I reminded last time here is not to get blissful experiences or go to higher realms. It's to break loose the whole thing. I'm fed up, suffering, misery, enough. I want out. This is the only accepted motivation to get to these teachings. The rest you will be told, go read something else, you know? So this determination is very indispensable. So korwa, the spinning wheel, means revolution, to revolve, to spin around, circle, cycle, or wheel. It is being trapped because of focusing with our consciousness, which is dualistic, on this or that or that. And when you let go, naturally, if you look, awareness self-acknowledges itself, because awareness is part of photon, then naturally you will come back to the natural point of origin. But this takes time. That's the thing. It takes natural time. Nirvana, gakpa, nyanyan ledepa, means to stop, to come to a halt. Where is the only place where things have stopped? May I ask? The singularity, the point of stillness. Nyanyan ledepa, another synonym, means beyond misery, beyond suffering. And the only point beyond suffering, because as we define, ego is the sufferer, it's the only suffering. It doesn't refer to pain being unpleasant. It's just a sensation. If you don't cling or self-appropriate your perception, well, it's just a stinging. Ego is the one that suffers. So the only point beyond of misery is where there is no ego, where there is no gravity, in the point of origin. And nirvana means cessation, halt, stop. So korwa, samsara. What is samsara? It is the infinity sign. The infinity sign indicates, think an apple that is cut in half. Oh, apple torsion field, right? What is it showing in the middle? Oh, singularity. And then what comes up must come down. They are circling like this. This is how, on the map the other time, although it was cyclical, the little arrows, black and white, showed us that it goes actually in the shape of the infinity sign, which any insider would know. But you guys could just see that and say, oh, it's a pretty picture, but have no idea about. So it's the infinity of cyclic existence. Infinity does not mean that it is infinite. It means that it continues as long as you do not put a halt to it. So it is not infinity in the sense that it has an expansion that goes without limit, because it has its own limits. The Luda movement will continue for as long as your free will does not decide to put an end to it. That is where the will comes in. And you might want to remind yourself that any time that you are in these outskirts, it is governed because the equation of the point of origin is unique. The equation of the other side, relative to what manifests, is very different and depends on the observer. You might want to remind yourself that it's kind of a law, meaning something that nobody can really go beyond, that is governed by what is known as karma. So the ground in the torsion field, the two paths, samsara and nirvana, and the two fruits, suffering and peace, are the different possibilities we have in this torsion field-like situation. I would like to come here on precisions of meditation before going into the primordial photon, because this is before anything else practical, how to do it. The present context, Dzogchen, Mahasandhi, is compared to a lion. It is called lion's gaze meditation, one of the greatest opuses that I would advise for those who simply want to know about the subject. There's one of these, and another called Lion's Gaze, which is a yellow book.
Which, how do you pronounce the author's name?
Longchen Ranjan.
Okay.
But it's one of his names, he has many names.
Right.
Another book that just really gives the basics and fundamentals of what I'm going to talk about too, the life of Garab Dorje, his testament and all that, called Lion's Gaze Meditation. That apart, what is this story with lions? So, let's imagine this situation. You come home from work. Your dog is still there all the day, you weren't there, so he hasn't been walking. He really wants to go for a walk. You come back and you want to walk too, so okay, let's go. You go to the woods, the forest. Dog's happy, no leash. And there's trees, so there's pieces of wood. You find a piece of wood, and they go. So, what does the dog do? Runs after, and comes back, right? Then the next day, let's say, same situation. You come back tired, happy I'll go for a walk with the dog. But your sister came or your brother came home early, and you took the dog already for a walk. So the dog's sleeping, can't be bothered. But you still want to walk, so you go to the forest. As usual, the trees and everything. And as always in natural forest, there are also lions. It's natural. So this time, take a stick. Who does the lion run after? The stick or you? So this is why Dzogchen meditation is called lion's gaze, because you look at the source. Who came first? In this who came first, the chicken or the egg? In this preposition, I'd like to go into that one in more detail maybe at some other point, because there's many things to go through. This itself is the source equation. We translate it from maths, but for those who understand. Who came first? Who's the boss? Look who's talking. If you, self-aware by nature, you self-acknowledge, then chicken and eggs are not in question. But if you miss that point, you will be in the situation of a chicken growing up and so forth and so forth and so forth. So lion's gaze meditation is oneself looking directly at one's nature. It's called natural great perfection. Rangshin Dzogpa Temple. And Mahamudra, the most beautiful instruction I received from this first Mahamudra teacher I was studying with, who was really exceptional in many ways. One day he defined Mahamudra in his own unique way. He said, quote unquote, Mahamudra is effing leave your mind alone, end quote. And he said the word, I'm just being polite. That's all it amounts to, being what we are. So meditation, in Mahamudra tradition, it will be described as being too close to be seen, too simple to be believed, too good to be true, and too deep to be fathomed. And in the context of Dzogchen, you will just have sit, zip, flip, as I resume them, which are translation from both traditions. 3 unmovables, 3 let it be's, 3 manners of resting. I mean, your body, like as if you put the car in the garage, everything comfortable, no pee, no hunger, no everything. You can leave it alone. This one, and then you flip your gaze, you look at your nature. That is all there is to do. And this will take time. And the golden rule in all of this is to enjoy yourself, is to have fun. Because this is what will make things fruitful. Like how is fire not an element? It is not an element as such, and yet it is like the water that you give to the plants, without which the plants cannot grow. It is that element has to be moistened. In the tradition here, they will always give this example, you have to moisten your practice, this water. Water refers to compassion, to love. It's this energy that heats things up. Have fun in discovering your nature. Be like a pioneer, being told all the time. This is a new territory, unknown territory. You're in nature, so have fun in discovering it. No, there is no such thing as a mistake. Being a child is a process of trial and error. So you are there to make as many mistakes as you want, because that's called learning. So enjoy yourself, have fun, avoid violence, knowing that like a coil, everything you press down, you will get it back in the face back, the boomerang effect. So tolerance and gentleness are kind of a rule, although gentleness and ego, with ego you have to be a little bit firm. So Shakyamuni resumed the situation as such when he was asked the question by a friend of his who was trying to get into practice a bit more, who was a musician, a really good guitar player. And one day the guy came and asked him, how can I meditate? I'm not sure, I really can't get it. And Shakyamuni asked him in return, well, when you play your guitar, do you have the best note when the ropes are too tight or when they are too loose? He asked. He said, well, no, you have to go just the precise tension and there you get the right sound. Well, likewise. So it's natural intelligence. You yourself have to taste and check this out for yourself. But the rule, have fun, enjoy yourself, and before anything else, most of all, trust yourself. This is your nature, which is perfect. You do not need anyone to tell you how good or bad. You do not need anyone to tell you what you have to do or anything. This is yours to enjoy it and so forth. So here, in this subject goes into the Tixum Nedek, the Testament of Garab Dorje, which we'll go into another time. But who came first, the chicken or the egg? Who came first? This refers to absolute reality, the ultimate reality, how things are. The first part of the equation, which is the empty full potential, like the variator, which couldn't care less how much something is manifest or not. And the chicken or the egg, well, you have an egg here, and then grows into a chicken and so forth. This is 2 points diametrically opposite on a circle. So it is the realm of pi. It refers to absolute, with its own unique set of maths, and the relative, which belongs to pi, phi, meter cubit, etc. So there and then you have the maths for those who can understand it. It is how things manifest. Another really important text for those who want to know, Finding Rest in the Nature of the Mind, and its two other brothers, because it's a trilogy by Longchenpa, which will explain karma, this thing that everybody talks about. Karma is so vast, has so many aspects, and is infinitely complex to really wrap one's mind around, because it affects literally everything. It is the rule of chemistry. Lavoisier, he said, nothing is created, nothing is destroyed, it just transforms. It is exactly that, but detailed into all inner aspects, environmental aspects, and so forth. The whole thing encompasses. So in this text, in Longchenpa's words, he was known for clarity, going to the point, in short words, and easy to understand. And one of the greatest, he's kind of one of the teachers that no school would ever say anything against. Oh, Longchenpa, okay, everyone's good with that, because he was kind of super duper in his own style. And not for no reason. If we had time to go into his history, he is one of the projects of Padmasambhava, himself a direct re-embodiment of Shakyamuni, who himself was there to give a better circumstance for what Garadhoja did, and the whole thing based on Tenpa Shenrat Miwachi, which was minus 18,000 years before, in the tradition of Shangshung and the Kushan Empire, which is almost forgotten, which was as great as Babylon, and so forth. There's lots of things in history, but for that, people would have to do their own research, because there's a lot of things. So, the lion's gaze, who came first? When you practice, an important thing is what is the same, what is different. You practice, an exercise is like, for example, you have a room where there's light and you have a switch near to you. You just concentrate on what you see. Like here you have the light and we have objects, table, things. And then you try to test what is this you part, that's common denominator that is there all the time. But you just relate to what you see visibly. Then you turn off the light, and right there and then, the exercise is, you ask yourself, what's the same, what's different? And you test for yourself, because when it's dark, the visual influence is not there, but your perception, your potential perception is still there. So you look at yourself directly there. And then, likewise, you turn the light back on, and there and then, the other way around, you try and stay in this sensation that you have, because when the eyes are closed or when there's no visible stimuli, then this awareness, this consciousness becomes a little bit more visible, because there's not all these stimuli. And then you do the opposite exercise, you turn it back on, and you train in staying in what the underlying stratum of your perception, this lucidity, innate lucidity of awareness. And you don't get caught, influenced, being catchable, exploitable by any objects, contents of your sensory field perceptions. If you remember, we defined puerility. What is the definition of the immature, the puerile, the foolish, the childish? Is those who are concerned by the contents of their sensory field perceptions, be it sights, sounds, smell, tastes, touches, or thoughts, because it's the inner sense. And the wise, the mature, are defined by those who are concern themselves with the nature, this emptyful potential, that which is timelessly unchanged, and which is the common denominator with everything and everyone. So this kind of practice is easy, and a main practice in Dzogchen, you have the practices of the gaps, which Chogyam Trungpa puts on the internet. This is one of the most secret teachings ever, so I was quite surprised to find this. It's not written top secret or anything. So this one, minding, I'll just read it out loud. The poster is Dzogchen Meditation Center, minding the gap, knowing the crucial point of recognizing natural awareness. This is priceless, this thing. And it is self-evident. So the different gaps that are important, useful to practice, good opportunities. When we sneeze, the moment you're there, the grasping is gone. If you just look at your awareness, your self-nature there, it is one of the main instructions of Dzogchen. Again, why do those guys say, bless you, bless you? When you have an urgent pee, you're holding on for a while and then, that's a good moment that is taught. And any other gaps, and then you make them yourself when you become better at practicing, and so forth. The notion of hope and fear, I have heard the hugest wrong interpretation of this from David Wilcock, which misunderstands that what they understand is not what he understands with the word, because he said, Tibetans, they say no hope and no fear. He doesn't understand what the word means. Redok is this 0 plus minus situation. Don't get involved in things and don't shun away from things. Hope and fear, rewatandopa, means expectation. Instead of staying fully present in the moment, you say, I'm doing this because I hope that this will become like this. Or simply the other side of the same coin, meaning, oh, I hope that won't occur. You know, this is what is translated as by the translators, meaning not the authors. So what I'm saying is, beware all translations are at least a little bit mistranslations, natural reasons. It means do not have expectation, attraction or repulsion. It's the same 0 plus and minus. But what is meant in English by hope, is actually the word esperanza in Spanish, which means hopefulness, aspiration, which in Sanskrit, pranidhana, in Tibetan, mönlam, which means prayer. Mönlam, one's intentions, one's wishes, and lam as a path. Co-creative consciousness, you take your own wishes, your own free will as the path. You use the bitch, karma, you know? Well, since it works like that, you yourself, like you grade your own CD or your DVD, you know, you decide, may I be like this, may I do this, or whatever, I want to do this. You are affirming your free will and taking that as a path. And that is called co-creative consciousness. You're creating the possibility. And that is called prayer. So it's interesting. So this hope and fear thing simply means in the present moment to know, yep, one way or another. That's all it means. But hope itself, esperanza, is gaining an additional horizon. And fear, depression most of all, when you think you are blocked, that there is no issue. This is the definition of hell. In French it works better. Enfer means hell, enfermement means locked up. So when you think you are locked up, you have no choice, no horizon, becomes hell. So here you create your own horizons because you know your potential is infinite and no one in the universe can tell you otherwise, so you discover it. How? By yourself. So life is an illusion, this thing we hear all the time. In Tibetan, true non, true illusory, like in true kor, yantra, machine, and non-appearances, like in non-si, the world of appearances and possibilities, one of the definitions of the world, appearances and possibilities. So true non, life is an illusion, means that if you focus on the illusory, superficial aspect of the movement of the waves on the top of the ocean, you miss the point of what's going on. That is why life is an illusion, because it's simply not the thing you should really look at. The illusion is just the crystallization of the whole. So life is not completely an illusion, but what you cling to is illusory. There are illusory appearances, like a hologram, as we said last time. And again, this is my Mudra teacher who was saying all the time that her ego and all these things, you know, meaning that's all it counts to, it boils down to. He was always telling me when I was asking questions, I mean, suffering gets bad, right? And I was asking him something to help with that. And he was always saying, why on earth do you still think this is real? It's all a big joke, it's a big farce, ha ha ha. And he left. That was just so frustrating, you know. But it's the thing, you have to understand really, if you really want free, well, it's yours, the work is yours to do. So he was always saying the whole thing is a big farce. So that's just how life is an illusion. Things appear, yet nothing is truly there. The expression meshin namla, which is the very meaning of what you know as rainbow body. It's not rainbow body in the sense that you colour 5 lights. Not at all. What is a ja in a rainbow in Tibetan? It means something that when you see it, you try to catch it, there's nothing really there. It refers to that character of meshin namla, that things appear, yet nothing is truly there. So it's rainbow-like body, not your rainbow body flying everywhere. So it's a metaphor, nothing else. There's a lot of things there, but I should go on, because there's a lot. I wanted to come to singularity and the primal photon, and then we'll probably have to end the session here. Singularity, the term in Dzogchen, is Tigle Nyakchik. Tigle is one of the most mistranslated words. It refers to concentration, focus of one's own awareness / consciousness. There is translated as seminal drops, concentrates, drops of this or that, spheres, sphericals, but it refers to the focus of one's consciousness. Nyakchik means singular, unique. So the single Tigle, the single focus, refers to the point of singularity, the 0 point, and this expression is all over the Dzogchen teachings. Singularity is simply nature, it's natural structure. They are self-aware photons. I'm going to introduce my little friend here. It's going to be the major tool of disclosure at this point. Self-aware photons, the point of origin. Even though I know the word origin itself has something to do with Orion, which I'm not very fond about, but the primordial photon. We have established long ago, even before we talked, that there's space and clarity. Okay, space, everyone agrees. Clarity, photons, everyone agrees. So David Wilcock has shown that there's a primordial tetrahedron. So space is one face. The clarity is one face. What are the two others? Well, Dr. Lakisevich showed awareness is definitely an equation, as we will see when we will quote the quantum physicist. It's all over the place. The laws of thought and everything, of perception, of conception, of consciousness are everywhere in the language. And the fourth one, I shall re-quote here, the law of one, which I will not quote for many things other than not very good examples, because they are big screws. They themselves don't understand it, and I know that simply by what Corey Wood said the first time he talked about them, that why they are helping us is because we as the human society, we are acting as a parachute for their own evolution. Well, then you understand everything. Their own gravity. If they didn't have their own gravity of their social memory complex, we would not be a parachute to them, nor anything else. How did the Buddhas get enlightened if everyone is a parachute, you know? It's simply because they themselves do not understand the things they talk about. Although they have nice wordings, and we bid you in the love and the light of the infinite creator and all that nonsense, to be very polite. So, law of one on photons. The questioner, when this vibration, which for lack of better understanding we would call pure motion, it is pure love, there is nothing that is yet condensed, shall we say, to form any type of density or illusion. This love then creates by this process a vibration, a photon, as we call it, which is the basic particle of light. So according to the law of one, the love is the energy that makes the photon manifest. I think there was this guy, what was his name, Jesus, he talked about the thing for a long time. But not many people listened, you see. And in fact, he was simply referring to the fourth face of the tetrahedron. Energy is love, which is why we like nice things and we don't like suffering, because it's nature. If this was not natural, then we would need to learn to like nice things, which would need to be defined and so forth. And yet all of us have likings and dislikings. This is the natural energy. So how is love not the energy of nature? It is, as our sweet friend in the beginning of the video earlier on said, the Bhutanese, at least they understand that life works this way, with sex. You know, it's the way things go. How could love be anything else than the energy of the prime photon? Which here we so sweetly name the prime Rubik cube. So space, the container vessel, is the empty full potential. Light, photon, which is perceived as photon through the eyes or perceived as sound through the ears, meaning light and sound are exactly the same thing, just like pressure and temperature, the same thing in geology, and that space and time are the same in being an element, one of the five elements. So energy, now we know, can be either manifest or non-manifest. That's the thing, which bifolds in the equation, yet it's in one, in the source equation. So energy manifests. When it manifests, it has a pulsation, which is fourfold, as we saw before: expansion, state, compression, rest. Expansion, state, compression, and then, see, this one can't really stay. But this fourfold movement, expansion, compression, okay? So, expansion, compression is the breath of the cosmoverse, of the cosmosphere, because universe means only one version. But this is from one of the major tantras of Dzogpa Chenpo, called The Mirror of the Heart. This is a French translation, which is absolutely beautiful, but there might exist, probably does in English. The Mirror of the Heart of the Indestructible Being. In the 5th chapter, there's an opening sentence that says, awareness is a pulsation embracing all things. And pulsation is a translation of the word upchub in Tibetan, which means compression, expansion. So even the translators don't know physics well enough. So it's energy, we're in the energy, which is now known to be love. Its pulsation, fourfold. Its radiance dances to the 4 tempi, or the 4 moods, which we saw previously: shanti, peaceful, increasing, then cautious, and kill. These are the 4 moods of energy, simply. And its amplitude, as we saw, what defines when a universe comes out of the Big Bang? It could be like this, expansion, stay, compression, rest, right? Sometimes it could be like this. What will define the amplitude? Love. And this is how we have, this is one of the most extraordinary extracts that when we're going to go into the quantum physics deeply, this is what I found in the subject. I'm holding it back, because this is the cosmic secret that everybody's been looking for and that no one seems to put two and two together. So the X wave, the wave of love, that's what they call it. I didn't say it, the X wave. This is what gives the amplitude to what manifests, meaning the number of beings in a certain realm. How much do you love is the name of the game. So this is why the dark, deep stack, the Illuminati and all the others, which is why they're missing the point. They have the information, but because they're busy taking the heart out of everything, they're taking their own energy out of their own hearts, which explains why they need to feed on us for their energy, because this is the heart of the problem. The satanic ritual abuse is where they kill the children and other people to take the energy. And so we have the exact solution. As long as we, the listener, has at least this much heart left, nothing is lost. You can, from nothing, resonate back. And this is how love is, in the end, can be victorious over all, if and only if, not because God says that He likes us, if and only if we are a certain number of us who actually do it. It's simply not. So love is the amplitude, and it is ever refracted. So this love, we've seen the five, if you listen to them they make you stupid, or the five wisdom powers, which power up red, yellow, green, blue and white. And the fourth one, so as we've seen, is awareness. They are aware photons. There is no such thing as inanimate matter. One of the direct implications of this is that the last grain of sand is alive, the last bit of space is aware. So, in as much as I appreciate what Dr. Lakisevich and Tim Sanders are doing, I was completely shocked by what I heard in the last video, because they were saying that people know energy as a plug in the wall to get energy, but now with this new tech we can get energy from elsewhere. And then I almost threw the phone out the window, because the guy himself is saying that they acknowledge that awareness is in the energy, but if it's an awareness, it will be a being, because they will have a consciousness if they don't recognize, right? Meaning you're going to steal someone else's energy and fuck other people even worse than what we're already doing. You know, don't you think humans have done enough? You know? So instead, now you know you have a black hole, you yourself, your torsion field. So the equation is the other way around. If you want to bring energy, well, give your own. You have your own black hole. Mind your own instead of stealing somebody else's, in short words. So this really unnerves me a lot, because it's exactly the counterproduction, where these people are trying to do their best to get things going. But they themselves don't put two and two together in what they themselves prove. So as a scientist, this is something that would rip your hair out, this kind of thing. So they are aware photons. There is no such thing as inanimate matter. If it's not yours, exactly, it belongs to someone else. I mean, so to speak. But you have your own, exactly. If you want energy, find your own. And then if you want to give to others, what is preventing you, again, remind me, from infinite potential energy? Yeah, exactly. So awareness is the point of origin. Every t equals 0 that goes by in every last one of us. We are all precious. Every last one of us is indispensable. Hitler included, the reptilians included, their AIs included. There's no way we can do away with any last one of us. It is one whole in the first place. And this oneness and multiplicity issue, seen through in the Dzogchen practice by direct experience, because explaining this is a little bit problematic. I've had a hard time myself, to the point where I can't even express it clearly because I don't understand it clearly. As the math teacher once said, what you understand clearly, you can express easily. That was deep wisdom for me at the time. So to resume, this primordial photon, this is the prime photon, nice to meet you too. I have 4 faces, 4 breaths for life, 4 moods of radiance, and am powered by 5 lights. I am 17. If you seek the point of origin, since time or space do not spin, but to harness the energy, the heart core must be in. That's a little poem I made up a few days ago. So I have 4 faces: space, photon, light equals sound, energy equals love in 5 powers, and awareness. 4 breaths for life: expansion, stay, compression, Where there's nothing is manifest, is real. And 4 moods of radiance: peaceful, increasing, careful, and kill. And I'm powered by 5 lights, the 5 wisdom energies: blue, green, yellow, red, and white, /purple. So everything in this little toy that I found in a shop next door, because there's Tipex all over my fingers because I rubbed out the make. I'm not sponsored by those guys to make their ads, so don't see why I should. This little thing resumes everything in my sense. And this is called nature. And it behaves in a torsion physics-like way. So remember, this torsion physics stuff that we're going to see, it is in the way we experience things. Just like if you can do the meditation properly, then your quantum computer, your brain, can start connecting its neurons in a quantum way. Because you, the observer, are the basis of what makes soul, which is itself the first generation machine, with a body. This is only the 2nd gen aspect of your quantum computing device, which is the basic, this one, awareness, where oneness is not a not an issue. Things are simultaneous and non-exclusive, and that is an issue for no one. Only for those who themselves, as the observer, are split, cracked, meaning duality, ego, and then they cannot see, because the observer is not in the proper perspective. So indeed, as we'll see, torsion physics agrees that the observer will determine that something becomes matter. But they don't know simply that there is a second possibility, just like when Corey Good says that evolution occurs through stress, because the poor thing, that's the only thing he's been told. If he only knew that there's another version of evolution, it's called through love. And it works so much better. You don't have the torture, you don't have the pain, you don't have the MK Ultra, and all these horrible things. So, to finish this part on the prime photon, because now it will be easier to talk about quantum physics, the things I've seen, with a bit of this. Energy, remind yourself, is self-sustained. Oneness means it's one whole, so there could not be any more or less energy. It's a closed fish tank, when we saw. It never comes from anywhere, nor goes anywhere. This terminology will be strewn all over the place in the Dzogchen teachings that I'm going to quote, the heavy-duty texts that are hidden and secret. This kind of language is all over the place. It does not come from anywhere, nor go anywhere. Manifest versus non-manifest. Yet the indestructible ground, represented by the swastika, which is why these people, Nazis, took the swastika as a symbol, because they're trying to find what is indestructible. And these poor idiots have been going looking for their own black hole in the center of the galaxy, which is called Schwarzsonne, because they think they're going to find it there, because they still don't understand their own singularity. And this ground remains timelessly unchanged, unadulterated, unsullied, whence the expression purity, uncorrupted and unstained, which is why it's represented as a lotus, which is why Buddhas and all that are represented. See, on a lotus it represents that. Zakpa Mepa, which means without effusion, without stains, without spilling out or without leaking, like a gutter. This primordial situation, once upon a time I just wasn't there. This is called leaking, literally. And this, in the equation, we're going to detail the source equation. There's the absolute, the relative, which has 2 perspectives from the observer. And the 5th part, after equation means equal, to equate one thing with another, right? It can be one or the other. Equation is God particle, meaning you. You, me, every last one of us is the God particle. This is why we do not need authorization or empowerment or anything whatsoever from anyone. But what we do need is to self-acknowledge our self-nature, because awareness and love are the 4 faces of this primordial Rubik cube. And thus, mathematics, one implication is that mathematics is the number 1 language of God, of Source, of Creator, of awareness. It is the language. But it's not the only language, because the other language is what, like all the time, people forget the second one. What is the second language of Source, of God? Silence. Silence is a very important language. The implications here, if you understand this, because I think it might not be that complicated. Look, Lucky Savage and others, they back up the awareness. Law of One and Jesus, they back up the love. And then the space and the photons and the sound, we didn't really doubt. So this is not really complicated to understand for anyone. What is complicated, difficult, is the implications. Because the implications of this, if this were to be true, is that every last crappy thing we've done to every last being in all our series of lives, we're going to pay the bill. And this is where we require this high vibration, high enough energy like what Corey Good is doing very bravely, and why I appreciate the guy so much, was is why I'm saying, using him as an example, because he's one of the best examples of those people who actually go into doing the inner work, as he calls it, and even by the terminology, to be able to forgive oneself. One would not talk that way if one doesn't have a certain amount of maturity. If you have that maturity, then it's in your way. That's why I'm saying he would like to know that through stress, we love to, and it doesn't need to get beaten or abused for that to occur. Because the maturity, the energy we have, is what can save us, keep us together. If you realize the implications of this, the whole thing is annihilated. Everything you believed, everything you structured on. So you need a stable ground. And this stable ground is brought by the practice of rest in peace meditation and resting meditation. You simply sit, shamatha vipassana, you sit, and you are just there, grounded, and you taste the taste, and you are used to a state where nothing in particular occurs, you're simply aware of yourself. This gives you stability, because you are used to nothing in particular. It's emptiness. So yeah, there's a lot of things with hyperdimensional maths, which means above 2 measures. Hyperdimensional, above 2 dimensions, which is the word itself is a misunderstanding of nature. If love was not the nature, then why would there even be good or bad? And to finish this off, I will finish off with what is named courage. In Sanskrit, virya, from whence the word virility comes from. Courage is the amplitude or the expression of any given universe. Of course, there are many verses. And courage in French, there's this little saying that goes, le courage, c'est le cœur à l'ouvrage, which means courage is the heart in action. So I will finish this chapter here and continue with torsion physics as soon as we can, because this is very much the heart of the subject.
Right, thank you very much, Oriana. That was absolutely fascinating. I really enjoyed the first part in terms of when we were talking about the machine and taking to pieces the machine. I just think philosophically that there was just so many different implications where you could take that information, and so I found that really fascinating. But that was it was very invigorating, and again in terms of you talking about meditation and breaking that down so that we can go back and look at the videos and look at how to meditate and the types of things that we need to be thinking about as well, or not thinking about, and the contrast as well in terms of being and non-being, and the conceptual and the non-conceptual. There's just a lot of information, and you can tell that you've really lived the life, that you've been there amongst the Tibetans, that you've studied it intellectually, but not only that, but that you've also experienced it as well, and that there's an experiential component. So thank you very much. I'd just like to thank you again.
Thank you.